Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more. You are tuned into the entertainment edition of the ODPH, and we definitely want to interact with you. So make sure to swing on over to odphpodcast.com. Join in the conversation on the social media accounts. They're all right there on the front page. Check out the TeePublic store, the Patreon link, which we have a new episode going to be dropping for our patrons early this week. You definitely want to keep an eye out for that. The Parlay Points blog section, the classified section, which has friends of the show, such as 3FN Podcast, the music section, the directory, which, Pat, how many providers are we on?
114,000.
Sounds about right. So if we're not on your favorite podcast provider, I don't know what else we can do. So that's why we say go to the directory, find us on your favorite podcatcher, give us a 5-star rating, and definitely spread the word of the show, because it definitely helps out getting more people involved in the conversation to talk with you. And always remember, if it's anything and everything that is the ODPH, it can be found at odphpodcast.com. And always remember on social media, use the hashtag ODPHpod. Kicking off this edition of the show, we have to give our review of the biggest movie at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely setting some records, making some noise.
Yeah.
And that is Marvel Studios' Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Came out to a big opening weekend. Pat, I know you got opening numbers.
Yeah, so domestically over the weekend, it made $180,000 at the box office, which, fun little fact, it is the second biggest opening weekend in North America this year, and it is the biggest November domestic opening movie ever. And then for totals, as we record, it's at $180 million domestically, $150,000 internationally, which gives it a worldwide total of $330 million.
Not too bad.
No.
Not too bad at all, especially for one of the most anticipated movies of the year, and it definitely has a reaction online. So that being said, we are going to give you, the ODPH Society, our review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. If you're new to the show, first and foremost, thank you for checking us out. What we like to do is give a spoiler-free statement about the movie or topic we're going to discuss. Then we give you a countdown in case you haven't seen it. We don't want to ruin anything for anybody. So we give you fair time to duck out. If you need to pause this podcast, jump back in after you've seen it. You have all the tools at your disposal, so we can't spoil anything for you. But after that countdown goes off, we go into a deep dive of the spoiler talk of Marvel Studios' latest project, and we're not going to hold anything back. So that said, Pad, give me your spoiler-free statement about Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
This movie was everything I could have hoped for, and then some. It was a wonderful tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, who, of course, played the title role of King T'Challa, Black Panther. And it was also, like a healing period, a mourning period, for fans to really come to terms with the fact that he's gone, just because, for reasons that be, the character hasn't been mentioned since the end of Endgame?
I believe so.
We saw them at the Wakandan embassy in New York, where I presume it was New York, at the end of Endgame, and we really haven't seen or heard from, I guess the Wakandan first family. There might have been a mention of Wakanda, or maybe even, there was obviously the Dora Milaje showed up in one of the TV series. I forget which one at this point. But in terms of like the first family, we haven't seen or heard from them. So it was nice to kind of have that grieving period along with them, and then kind of to have the healing process and moving forward, because time doesn't stop for anything. It keeps marching forward. Mm-hmm. So to get kind of like the whole the 5 stages of grief and dealing with death in one movie, it was unique. It was, because I know there have been films in the past where the actor has passed away and, then the movie comes out. But this felt unique. It felt different. And that's in a good way. And so I really enjoyed it.
It was a wonderful tribute to Chadwick Boseman, who unfortunately had passed away, and obviously the impact that he made on the Marvel Universe. Everybody involved with this film definitely wanted to pay him proper tribute moving forward, and they did an absolutely fantastic job. It definitely captured the spirit of the first movie. It went into a couple different directions. They introduced some brand new faces to the MCU that are going to be big names moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it took nothing away from the overall emotional roller coaster of, like you touched upon, the stages of grief that we all go through. That obviously connecting with the character and the actor that played him.
Yeah.
You know, this was a healing process that definitely worked for the fan base who, we, like you touched upon, we have not heard anything about Wakanda since Endgame, other than when the Dora Milaje appeared in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's what it was, okay.
But since then, it's been very quiet about what this film was going to be about.
Yeah.
There's a lot of online speculation of who was going to be here. We did know that there was going to be certain characters getting added to the mix and how everybody just gelled together. It was a wonderful movie. It definitely captured a lot of attention, and rightfully so, of how well it was done. And just like I say, it was a fitting and beautiful tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, and for this next stage of where the MCU is going to go to as well at the same time. So definitely worthwhile going to check out for the 2 hour and 40 minute mark, but one that definitely we have a lot to talk about with that. So that being said, in 3, 2, 1, Pad, talk to me.
This film was amazing from start to finish. I swear to God, if Angela Bassett doesn't get at least nominated for something for this movie, I'm going to have real issues with the Academy, the folks who nominate stuff for the Academy Awards, because, my God, this was a performance, that you would not normally see in any other comic book anything. Movie, TV show, short, video game. This was her performance in this movie was otherworldly. I mean, there was the scene between her and I believe it was Lupita Nyong'o in the throne room where, and they showed it in the trailer where she's screaming, oh, I've lost my whole family. But just once you get the full context of that scene, holy shit, like Angela Bassett stepped it up a whole other level in this movie. And everybody else in this movie really stepped their game up too. Like Lydia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Denai Guerrero, Winston Duke, they were all fantastic in this movie. And it didn't feel like the shine was on one particular person, that like the spotlight was on everybody, and everybody had their own little stories going on. The pacing was great. The action sequences were otherworldly. Some of the best action sequences I've seen in a Marvel movie since Shang-Chi. Mm-hmm. Shang-Chi I think is still better, but damn, this one comes close. So overall, fantastic movie. You definitely need to go see it.
Give Angela Bassett all the awards right now.
Yeah.
Incredible performance in this movie. Just cannot rave about her portrayal enough. I thought everybody really took this movie to a different level. I thought that everybody's acting really brought the most emotion out to really set the tone for where this project was going to be going. Because we had known that obviously we were going to be having some new characters introduced.
Yep.
Some new faces were going to be showing up in the MCU. The biggest one that I think we all had question marks about was Namor. And Tenoch Huerta. Oh, my God. You want to talk about star appeal? You want to talk about the next big thing in MCU? Boom.
That was quite possibly his introduction, and just kind of like his whole crew's introduction, fairly early in the film. Might have been the best introduction they've done in Marvel history.
It's up there.
Just from they came in, they wrecked shit, they left. There was no time for dilly-dallying. There was no chit-chat. There was no quick one-liners. Came in, wrecked house, left.
I thought that they did a great job introducing him, and I thought they did an amazing job introducing Dominique Thorne, a.k.a. Riri Williams, as Ironheart.
Yeah.
That if you didn't understand where the hype was with this character, you are now fully locked and loaded for whenever that Disney Plus show is coming. Sure, I think a lot of stuff might have been changed from the comics a little bit, but it didn't matter. Like, that's where this movie really shined at. I thought that everybody, from Letitia Wright to Lupita Nyong'o to Denai Guerrero to Wilson Duke to, everybody in this cast that was in the first one really brought this movie and poured so much heart and emotion into this that you couldn't just help but be moved watching it. And you just really felt just how the storyline, once it got going, you really understood about how impactful Chadwick Boseman was and just how they really wanted to make this just such a wonderful tribute to him. And obviously, when they kick off with the movie, they didn't shy away from his passing.
No.
And they really, what I mean by that is you instantly open the film and Shuri is there trying to find a way to save T'Challa.
Which was surprising. I figured we'd see something involving the death, or he'd be already dead at the start. Did not expect to see this.
No, definitely didn't expect to see this, but they open up that, he is passing from an illness.
They didn't say what.
They didn't. I thought they handled this perfectly.
Yeah.
And Shuri was trying to recreate the heart-shaped herb that gives Black Panther the power.
Yep.
Couldn't do it in time.
And, of course, the issue with that being is in the last film, if you remember or don't remember, Killmonger destroyed them all.
Right.
So that was the issue. She's trying to synthetically create it while comparing it with her brother's DNA. And she's working with and I forget the exact percentages, but they were in the 25% range.
Yeah, nothing cleared 30.
Well, nothing cleared 30, and even her AI that was working on her with it, it was even princess, this probably won't work. And she's like, I don't care, do it.
Yeah, but unfortunately she can't get it done in time.
Yeah.
And then from here we go to the traditional Marvel crawl, but they go and give a wonderful tribute here.
Yeah, so they took, at least I think they took the, they changed it from what it normally is, and I think they used the one from when he died initially, because when he died initially, they went to the crawl for Black Panther 1 on Disney Plus and switched it up to Alt T'Challa.
Yeah.
I think if memory serves, because I haven't seen Black Panther 1 in a while, I think they just took that again, but then this time instead of putting any sort of anything while this title sequence is going on, dead silence.
Yeah.
And even in our theater, you could legitimately hear a pin drop.
Yeah, no, it was a very powerful scene.
Moment of silence.
Absolutely. So everybody was paying very, very much respect to the late Chadwick Boseman here. Then we jump back into the film. We already had the funeral for Black Panther. It's now 1 year after, and Wakanda is definitely in a situation it's not comfortable in.
No.
Because now the UN is trying to basically get its hands on as much vibranium as they can. And however, they're trying to spin it as working diplomatically.
Yeah, they're trying to put a positive spin to it, but Wakanda's seen through this. They're hey, we know what you're fucking up to. And while this is all going on, we're seeing an instance take place I thought it was simultaneously, but it ended up being in the past of, somebody, an organization or a group trying to steal the vibranium. I
believe it was the French government.
It was someone working. They didn't outright say it was, the French government, but they just looked at the French government representative at the UN and they just looked at them and said in French, "You're welcome."
Yeah.
Or this is for you or something like so. So they didn't outright say, these people work for the French government, but they did imply that the French government employed them.
Yeah, so it's definitely heavily there, but Queen Ramona is just basically saying, we're not working with anybody.
Yeah.
That vibranium is ours. Stay out. And the gauntlet is thrown down. This is after a great action sequence with the Dora Milaje protecting one of the vibranium plants.
Yeah.
So like I say, the action kicked off right away. And I have to say, I love how Ryan Coogler was shooting this too. Because definitely just went full throttle into those action scenes. And, just really set the tempo early with this once we started going into the story. And then meanwhile, Ramona is trying to talk Shuri into recreating the heart-shaped herb. Shuri is kind of holding off on that because she's still in her moment of grief that she couldn't save her brother. So she's trying to dodge this as much as she can, even though Queen Ramona is saying, we need a Black Panther to defend Wakanda.
And Shuri's saying, hey, listen, that's great and all, but it's an antiquated, out-of-date idea.
Yeah, so they're going to have a small conflict here. Meanwhile, like Pat alluded to, we now go to the Atlantic Ocean. And there is a little freight that's going by. Well, I shouldn't say just a little freight.
It's a giant cargo ship.
Right. That is now trying to investigate some minerals in the ocean, shall we say?
It's doing some research.
And what is it looking for, Pat?
Vibranium, because they have a device that was built by someone, we don't know who yet at this point, that can detect vibranium. And to this point, even the Wakandans think that all the vibranium's in Wakanda, but this little device, this little submersible has detected vibranium in the ocean floor in the Atlantic. And so they're like, hey, here's this item we really want, but the Wakandans aren't willing to give us, and no one's here to stop us.
Mm-hmm. So as the U.S. Contingent is now investigating, because they have Navy SEALs, they have CIA involved.
I think they said at one point later in the movie, Martin Freeman explains that this was like 20 or 30 of the CIA's top agents. And it was like 20 or 30 top CIA agents, and then like another 15, 20 top Navy SEALs or something. So it was the best of the best.
Yeah, so as they're going down into the water, they're finding out there's vibranium there, and everybody thinks they have this big win.
Yeah.
Until we start seeing figures starting to swim around them.
Mm-hmm.
And then a jellyfish is nearby.
Yeah, it's this like super rare jellyfish or something. It's like illuminating, red light or something like that. The woman who goes down is freaking out about. She's like, "Oh my gosh, no one's ever seen this. This is amazing." And mind you, they're not that far down. I think at one point they said they hit like 800 feet down, which in nautical terms, it's not that far down.
Yeah, not super down.
Not super far down. So they're looking, and then they lose the so it's her and another guy down there, and of course they're in these highly advanced suits. They're monitoring their vitals, and somebody on the boat goes, "Hey, we just lost whatever the guy's vitals are," and they're like, "Can you turn around and see if he's there?" And like a fucking horror movie that was directed by Sam Raimi, goddamn, she pans left. My heart rate on my watch was about 120 about 120 at this point. She pans left and looks, and all you see is the little hook device, whatever this thing is responsible for there, but there's nothing on the end of it. It's been ripped out. And she goes, "Oh, shit."
Yeah. And then meanwhile, we see there are invaders now attacking the ship. Stealth-like.
Stealth-like and singing.
Yes, because they're using the power of the sirens to force people to jump off the boat and kill themselves.
Yes, folks, the sirens like from, Greek mythology.
Yeah, which I love they went here with
that was brilliant.
Yeah, because this is something that kind of ties into how Atlanteans do warfare.
Mm-hmm.
They're very unorthodox in this style, but that's just how they're raised in that culture. So you do see, well, I have to say it's not Atlantis at this point, too. It's Telecon. And you're starting to see that they are now attacking the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And you're seeing the head scientist who's trying to discover all the vibranium. Well, she's now running to a helicopter, and she's trying to make this dramatic escape. Meanwhile, the ship has been overrun with these blue-skinned humans, which we know from the comics is Atlantean. So I think for purposes, we'll just say Atlanteans.
Sure.
As we see the helicopter take off and is just making these, this triumphant escape after shooting at a few of the Atlanteans.
Well, yeah, and this is after the female scientist has done like the most awkward, bizarre route on the ship. Like she goes from one side to the other, and I'm talking laterally, and then she decides to go up the ship towards where the helicopter passed. So it was bizarre. And she goes, go, take off. And this is while she's shooting them. But like she's shooting with like probably like just a standard pistol, nothing super fancy or crazy. But she's hitting these Atlanteans in the chest and the shoulder. They're not dropping. They're stumbling and they're falling backwards a little bit, but they're like, to quote the great Jay-Z, they're brushing her shoulder off.
Right.
So then she gets in the helicopter and takes off, and things aren't quite what they should be.
Right, because the helicopter is taken down and crashed.
Well, it's not even taken down, it's crashed. It's thrown.
Yeah.
Because something immediate, so the Atlanteans grab onto it as they're taking off. She's like, "Hey, you got to lose him, shake him." So he starts doing 360s right over the ship to throw him off. She's like, "All right, hey, they're gone." Well, then something grabs hold of him, and we don't see what it is, and it throws him back towards the ocean. The helicopter explodes, and that's when you see a silhouetted figure floating in the sky with little wings on its ankles.
Yes. So Namor makes his debut. Tenoch Huerta just shows up and definitely sets that pace early. Like, you understand that this is a character not to mess with. So definitely kind of tying in some of the stuff that you've seen more recently with the character in comics. Like over the past, in the MCU comics universe, that is, has had kind of a very, I know I'll hear some flack for saying this, anti-hero stance.
Yeah.
But he's more of a conflicted character than more people give him realize, but his arrogance is more or less his superpower here.
Pretty much.
And we do see this as he sneaks into Wakanda and confronts Angela Bassett's Ramonda and Letitia Wright's Shuri.
Yep.
And as they're kind of, assessing what is going on, he does something in only Namor ways he can do.
Yeah.
He's trying to be diplomatic, but it's not really working. It's kind of like, I got in here. People are now looking for your vibranium.
Mm-hmm.
We need to work together.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to work together, to paraphrase a bit.
Yeah, I would say to give you a Cliff Notes version.
Yeah. Or if you don't, I'm going to attack Wakanda myself.
And I think his exact words at one point during this whole speech were, I have more soldiers than there are plates of grass in Wakanda. And basically says, you need to work with me or they'll show up as easily as I did.
Yes, because as he explains, there's a machine that was finding your vibranium. So that means they're coming after you if you did not create this machine.
Yep.
So I want to find out who did this and set an example. So you're going to help me.
You're going to help find the scientists that made this, bring them to me, and everything will be okay.
And both of Ramona and Shuri are like, no, like this. Well,
I think at first they're like, okay, yes, we're just agreeing with you so that you leave and you don't hurt us.
Yeah, because at this point they're just like, who are we dealing with? As he emerges out of the water, like he had a very dramatic entrance. Like I say,
yeah, because he just shows up in the middle of the friggin' Wakandan jungle behind the shield. Now in the scene, they're in the savannah in Africa or something, but they're still in Wakandan territory. They're behind the shield. So this man's inside the fucking shield, and all they have is the clothes on their backs and spears.
Yeah.
Like, they are so hilarious. They don't even have a ship out there that they traveled in. They're like, no, they just walked out there or something.
Right.
So they're so hilariously outgunned that I think they're just going, okay, we're going to agree with you so you don't kill us.
Well, I think that they're just trying to assess the threat that is, because this is the first time it seems like this is the first time in anybody's knowledge Namor has left underwater in quite some time and has now emerged, because nobody really has an idea who he is.
Well, nobody that we know of.
Right. But I'm sure that obviously there's been some alluding to in the Avengers movies that there's been some rumblings underwater.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't really kind of followed in, but it does fit the Namor.
I think they mentioned something in Endgame. I think
did.
There was a mention of like underwater or something or other.
Yeah, they mentioned something, but I can't remember if they used Atlantis and then they changed the name at the time.
Maybe.
So it's something. It's been a little while. Hashtag ODPH pod. You can correct us on that. It's cool. But this is where Shuri is now making a connection to an old friend, one CIA's finest, Everett K. Ross. So Martin Freeman reprises that role and is now dealing with Shuri, who is going with Denai Guerrero's Okoye over to the U.S. to find out, okay, what the hell happened, and who is this scientist that we need to go get to save, because this is going to be a start of a civil war, or no, I shouldn't say civil war, rather, this is going to be a start of an international
war.
That is going on, and they say, well, we know who did it, but she's not who you think.
Well, and even Everett Ross is reluctant to tell them the information just because, and he says, people have been prosecuted for treason for less.
Yeah.
For saying less.
Right.
So he does give the information, though, when we find out, that, we do know who the scientist is. We're kind of tracking them, but there's one problem. They're a student.
Yeah. They're like, what? So sure enough, we find out that Dominic Thorne's Riri Williams is the person responsible for the vibranium tracker. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Love this swerve. And obviously this kind of ties in that she's a student at MIT.
Yep.
And kind of hustling her way through school, too.
Very handsomely, might I add, in terms of money.
Yes, so she's definitely fixing some grades, she's in a lot of trouble.
She's doing basically a homework ring where she does people's homework for them to help them get good grades.
Yes. So at this point, Shuri and Okoye approach her and say, basically, you need to come with us or you're going to die.
Well, no, Okoye just wants to outright kidnap her in broad daylight.
Yeah.
She's like, fuck this, I don't care, we're going to do it. And Shuri's like, no, I think we can do this stealthily and not cause a scene, and I'm about the right age for these students here. So she figures out what dorm she's in, goes into the dorm hall, finds her room, knocks on the door. She's like, oh, I don't really do and Riri opens the door and, hey, I don't really do house calls anymore. And Shuri just walks in, and Riri goes, oh my God, and recognizes her immediately. So they go through this whole song and dance of like Shuri trying to convince her to come along, and she's kind of 50-50, like, I don't know. And then Okoye just walks in because she's like, listen, I said I'd give you 5 minutes. It's been 6.
Yeah. So they're getting ready to get down to business. They wind up going to Riri's, I don't want to say hideout, but her...
it's her fortress of solitude.
Yeah, it's the easy way to describe it. I would say her laboratory where she's working on different projects.
It's a garage.
One's the car. The other is the Iron Heart prototype.
Mm-hmm.
So they do wind up there. But while they're there, they're approached by the CIA, or FBI rather, to go arrest them because obviously Riri is a person of interest.
Yeah, Shuri gets notified from her ad. They're like, hey, just so you know, we got visitors coming.
Yeah, so they're looking for Riri. They're now looking for Shuri. They're basically trying to find out what's going on. And they do make this fantastic escape.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this whole sequence of events was just really cranking on the action, which I really love seeing. And then they get to a bridge point.
Yep.
And this is where Talcon strikes.
Mm-hmm.
And we do see some familiar faces to comic readers, but kind of a surprise to me, though, I will say. Because I was not expecting to see Namora, who is Namor's cousin, show up here.
Okay.
And Atuma, which has been a very, very notable villain of Namor throughout the years.
Right.
But they show up, and they are now getting into the fight because now they want to go kill the scientist. And you see some great fighting, too. Okoye versus Atuma was a fantastic battle, going back and forth, until it ultimately ends up where Shuri winds up giving herself up to buy some time.
Mm-hmm.
So Shuri gets kidnapped.
Yep.
With Riri.
Yep.
As almost like a bargaining chip, so to speak.
Oh yeah.
Okoye is left, but she's thrown into the ocean after losing the battle.
Yeah, she was fought this long extended battle, but then gets blown into she gets blown into the river.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and swims up and swims up and sees Riri and Shuri getting kidnapped, doesn't know the context, and just starts screaming.
Yeah, so she's now thinking Shuri's dead now too. Doesn't realize what's happening here. She has to go back to Wakanda, which you can only imagine how this is going to go over.
To quote my father, like a fart in church.
Yeah, so Queen Ramonda takes away any rank from Okoye from the Dora Milaje.
Well, this is after she's like, hey, listen, I'm sorry, I did everything I could. Let me go after her and find her. And Queen Ramonda's like, fuck you. No.
Yeah.
As far as I know, I'm the only person from my family left. Haven't I lost enough? And this whole scene is just
powerful.
Lord. Good Lord.
Powerful scene going on. So she decides that she's going to take matters into her own hands.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you do see that Namor is being very respectful of Shuri.
Yeah.
And trying to explain his side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
We get this fantastic origin of Namor, how he got his powers per se.
Yep.
I know they threw around a certain word, which everybody was kind of losing their mind about. Mutant.
Oh, yeah.
But it already happened on Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
We know from the comics, if you read them long enough, Namor is the first mutant in Marvel Comics history.
Well, and in timeline history for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he is too.
Yeah, so it takes a little while to go there. I know, like, some people were like really like losing their minds.
Oh my God, they said mutant. They said mutant. Tell me you haven't seen Ms. Marvel without telling me you haven't seen Ms. Marvel.
Yeah. So for me, like, it wasn't that big of a shock. But it
was nice confirmation.
It was confirmation.
I figured it would come. It was just nice to hear him say it.
Yeah, so he's explaining about the trials that he's had growing up and how he's now been the hybrid mutant, so to speak, and what he's been able to do and why he's trying to do this and why he hates the surface world. And he has a legit right.
He's got a beef.
He has a legit right because he saw that the Mayan civilization that he was coming from was imprisoned, and he's fighting back against the captors of it. So he has a natural hatred for him, which it makes sense for his character.
I'll say to quote Falcon, from Falcon Winter Soldier, he's out of line, but he's got a point.
Yeah, exactly. And at this point, Shuri is trying to reason with him and saying, like, listen, you can't kill her. It's not her fault.
Yeah.
And he's just like, no.
There's more going on here, and there's more aspects to this than you realize.
Exactly. So he's like, it's kind of a very cool political intrigue, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So, and that's one thing I know that Ryan Coogler was trying to set up with this film, and definitely hit it right on the head. Like, this felt more like a political thriller than anything.
Sure, a little bit. And to me, it kind of felt like Namor was in the position Wakanda was during the first movie. We were like, hey, we're super secluded. We don't know too much about what's going on in the world. Like, Wakanda was aware. but Namor and his folks don't really have too much an idea what's going on. Because, like, hey, we want to live and let live. So Shuri's kind of taking it from the aspect of, like, hey, I realize you knew how things were. It's not how they are now.
Yeah, so it's a very cool setup going on here. Meanwhile, Queen Ramona has reached out to Nakia, who has been in Haiti since the events of Avengers Endgame. So Lupita Nyong'o comes back to the fold, and she has now been recruited to go save Shuri because she is the only one who can.
By any means necessary.
Yes. So she now makes her way through Talokan because she can track her. They track them down to Talokan. Makes it, and we have to say too, what a setup from the cinematography here.
Yeah.
Talokan looked very impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously fueled by some vibranium as well.
Sure.
So it does kind of go into play, but it definitely is a very impressive scene. The only thing I will say is, in my personal opinion, I thought they spent too much time here.
It felt like the right amount to me.
I know, like, it was just kind of like with how everything was moving with the story. It's like they really were like going over the top trying to...
In all honesty, like, I felt like it was enough time, but I also at the same time felt like we didn't get a lot of time with it because it was bouncing back and forth. So, like, we saw a couple of places, but we didn't really get to see it.
Yeah, well, I like I say, we can agree to disagree about this, but you know, I can see that point though too. So I just thought this was kind of like, for where they extended the scene out, they really could have tied up a little things here, because obviously Nakia makes her way down there, pulls off an amazing escape, but in the process, is responsible for setting off the first strike of Talokan versus Wakanda. Because as they're making an escape, and she was given the orders by any means necessary to get Shuri back, she winds up fatally wounding an Atlantean. And at this stage, Namor comes in to see, obviously, Shuri has escaped with Riri Williams. They're on their way back to Wakanda. Namor is walking in and seeing one of his people is now dead. And knows that, well, somebody's responsible.
Well, and this is after Namor has met with Queen Ramonda again. And basically, Ramonda tried bargaining with him for a better outcome where it didn't lead to, killing a child. And he's like, no, you're going to do what I say. And I'm paraphrasing, but he goes, no, you're going to do what I say. And if I get any detection of any Wakandan being in Talokan, there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah.
And so, plot A or point A lead to point B. If anybody shows up, there's going to be issues. And, well, somebody showed up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it fit right in. So you do see that, obviously, this first strike has been taken by Wakanda onto Talokan. Namor answers in force. In one of the most wild sequences you're going to see.
Riling up the troops.
Yep, and definitely lets loose just a fraction of his army, so he claimed.
So, yeah.
Onto Wakanda, and they absolutely decimate Wakanda. It's not even funny.
No, it's not even close.
Like, they just go in there and basically crash everything. You do see that... Riri is drowning at one point because the city is now flooded. The palace is now getting flooded. So, and Ramonda tries making the save too, and she winds up losing her life saving Riri.
This is just so wild to watch because you think back to Infinity War, where, one of the main battles took place in Wakanda, and this was up against, Thanos and his forces, and they held their own. Sure, they lost in the end result, but they still held their own, So this is a force that has had time to advance and develop and come up with some new stuff, getting their asses handed to them. Yeah. And it's just crazy to see.
No, and like I say, it's completely one-sided. Like, they're going through.
Oh, yeah.
And just absolutely destroying that city.
I mean, they were caught with their proverbial pants down.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, Wakanda has always withstood every single attack from the outside with the Black Panther as its champion and with the technology that they have.
Well, and even if memory serves, after the scene where Namor showed up and talked to Shuri and Ramonda, they had the council meeting, and one of the things they said in the council meeting was, hey, we need to up our shield defenses and make these shields stronger so that he can't get through again. I'm going to presume they did so in the, in between time that scene to this point. Yeah, a lot of good that did.
Well, that's the one thing with Namor, and for how long he's been around, the fighting experience that he has. Like, we are just getting exposed to it now.
Sure.
But you have to remember, I mean, he's been fighting for, it seems like centuries at one point. But with how he's grown in that and what they have going on in Talokan, he was ready for battle. And he showed no fear. And this is something that plays into the comics. Like, he's very impulsive and very irrational, but he's very business oriented too. Like if he has a mission, he's going to succeed it. It's what makes him such a compelling yet dangerous character. That if he's on your side, it's a great thing.
Oh yeah.
If he's against you, there's probably going to be a problem. And this really showed his power set to a great degree. I mean, him crashing through the palace and causing the flood there, especially he winds up killing Queen Ramonda. Like that's something too. I mean, you can say it's inadvertently, but no, I mean...
No, I think it was deliberate.
Yeah, it was deliberate. Like, I know some people are trying to say, well, he's just attacking, it was an accident. Like, no.
No,
he wanted to make a statement.
That was deliberate because in the middle of the grieving and finally getting in the room, right before he flees, he looks at Shuri and goes, "You are queen now."
Yeah.
So you don't say that on a whim, like, "Oh, hey, what a coincidence! I happen to kill the queen."
Yeah, no,
that was deliberate.
No, I agree too. Like I said, I had some people hit up online, and I was like, I think that was legit. I think he wanted to make a statement because he is really trying to get working with Shuri rather, and obviously if Ramonda's in the way. I mean, it's a political move. It's not. Yeah. It's not a popular thing, but it's something it's very tactful. So he does wind up saying, "I'll be back in a week with my full army." Like you just got a taste. So now it's going to be the full course if you do not work for me. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say with because obviously
if you don't go along.
Yeah, he's just kind of saying if you're not on board, we're gonna take you out.
Yep.
And take this as our own. So now they have to kind of reassess things here, which definitely plays into a factor. Because now, obviously, the U.S. is catching wind of what happened here with Ramonda's death.
Well, so's the news because, CNN, is in the movie and they're reporting on her death.
Mm-hmm. And we do see that Ross is getting now questioned and subsequently arrested by his ex-wife, who's a familiar face in the MCU. I love this swerve because I did not see this coming.
Christ, I don't think anybody did.
And Pat, who is this?
That is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, a.k.a. Valentina Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
So...
Figured she'd be in the movie. Didn't expect this.
I had a feeling too, but I wasn't like, but where? I mean, that's the whole thing. Is just how did they want to set this up? Oh, they set it up all right. That now that she has taken a very specific interest in Wakanda and what's going on there, she's now picking up wind of what is happening here and is going to keep an eye on. Now, is this going to roll into Thunderbolts? Maybe. I agree with you. I think maybe. There'll be some fallout happening here. But meanwhile, the people of Wakanda are reassessing things. You're seeing the Council of Powers that Be there are really trying to assess what's happening. Shuri now is fully convinced she needs to recreate the heart-shaped herb. That now more than ever she knows
they need Black Panther.
Yeah, they need Black Panther. And she winds up working with Nakia and Riri to recreate it. So there is one that is now 97% accurate.
It's like 97 or 98.
It's high.
It's high.
So she winds up taking the herb herself.
Yep.
This is where things get amazing and crazy at the same time.
There was a collective gasp in our theater.
Yes. Because when she takes the herb, she starts gaining the abilities, but she is expecting to see her brother.
Well, because she goes to I forget what it is, the astral plane or whatever plane. The plane where she goes to see the ancestors.
Yeah, so she's expecting to see the former Black Panthers, her brother or grandfather.
I didn't think they'd show.
Her father.
I knew they wouldn't show T'Challa because Disney and Ryan Coogler already said we're not going to CGI.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, T'Challa's out. I figured it'd be the father, maybe the grandfather or like somebody else. Was not expecting who showed up.
No, definitely. Like I say, I agree too. Like I say, just for her character, she was expecting to see her family.
Yeah. Well, technically she did.
Technically she did because, Pat, who does she see?
Fucking Michael B. Jordan, a.k.a. Killmonger.
Yes.
God damn.
The legend returns.
This man was on screen for 5 minutes but stole a good portion of the movie.
Oh, my God, yeah. And he is basically picks right up where he left off.
Oh, yeah.
And is saying, well, I told you so.
Yeah.
I told you. You needed to be proactive. You got to go out there and set the tone, and you really need to get vengeance.
Look at how your brother did things. Look where that got you. You saw what I would have done. Would it have been the same outcome?
Yeah. Like I say, it's crazy. Of all the people that she could have seen, like I say, her brother, her father, her grandfather, all the lineage of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
She winds up seeing Killmonger, of all people. So definitely wasn't expecting that. And kind of puts a little edge in her, too.
Oh, yeah.
That maybe it's kind of a weird thing, but maybe her character needed that for what she was going to have to do. Because
I think so.
Because she's never had to go into real combat on this kind of level. That
No.
she is now going to be the protector of Wakanda. She's in a brand new suit that did kind of align with Killmonger's a little bit.
I noticed that.
A little more of an influence here. She makes a dramatic appearance in front of M'Baku and the rest of the camp.
Yeah, because what is it? They've evacuated Wakanda just for the safety of all the folks who live there. They're in the land where M'Baku and his people live.
The Jabari Mountains?
Yeah, they're in the mountains, and so they're debating, well, who's going to be the new ruler? What are we going to do? The X, Y, and Z. And the ship just shows up. Everyone kind of stops, looks up, and she comes out of the ship, doing the superhero landing and just lands in front of them. Mm-hmm. And our whole theater just erupts in applause.
Yeah, so obviously everybody's excited to see the Black Panther has returned to save Wakanda, and Baku is really trying to reason with her too. At the same time, like he knows what's going to go on. Well, Winston Duke just really played a great role in this film.
Winston Duke absolutely killed it in this movie, because there was a moment in this scene where like something gets brought up, and they're like looking at him, and he gives an answer to something. And everyone kind of looks at him like, wow, we're surprised you knew that. And M'Baku just looks at him and goes, what, just because you think we're in the mountains, we don't have books?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Freaking line of the movie.
Yeah, did such an amazing job of there. But he's the one that's trying to be the voice of reason here. And I loved how they were setting that up. So now it's coming into a place that, well, Shuri has basically said, we're going to take them out by any means we have to, because we're not going to let Ramonda's death go unanswered.
Mm-hmm.
So they set up a play to draw out Namor and company. Meanwhile, at the same time, Okoye, who had been stripped of her title as the leader of the Dora Milaje, has been given the Midnight Angel armor.
Mm-hmm.
So Aneka has been brought into wear the armor as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
Ao has been now given the role of leading the Dora Milaje.
Mm-hmm.
So now the army is ready to go for battle.
Yep.
They now go off into their own ship.
Yep.
And they're drawing out Namor and company.
Yep.
And it's smart how they do this, because basically they realize that Namor gets his power from the water.
Mm-hmm.
That if you can take away his strength and basically dehydrate him,
basically drown him out or dry him out.
Yeah, you can definitely hold your own against him, which it perfectly makes sense in the comics.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So Shuri winds up getting Namor separated from the battle here.
Yep.
So a spaceship is, I should say spaceship, but their craft does wind up catching him, does entrap him and turn on the heat. So
because the ship has been modified with essentially like space heaters or something like that, where or like the heating lamps you would see in a reptile, enclosure. He gets in there, she turns on the force field while she's in the cockpit. Turns on the heat, and all of a sudden he starts drying out, like a fish on land, and he just starts going,
yeah. So she's completely ready to weaken him and take him out herself. Mm-hmm. All the while, you're seeing the Midnight Angels are holding their own, the Dora Milaje is holding their own against the Talokan forces. Ironheart is having her moments as well. At one point, she was facing off with Namor too, and was holding her ground.
She was doing all right
until they got up too high in the sky.
Yeah,
and then she had to make a dramatic save to kick in. But like I say, it did enough that she made her presence felt in the movie, and definitely got you excited for what's coming. So, like I say, she didn't have a lot of screen time that second half.
It was an intro,
but it was a great intro. So, like I say, it worked out for what it needed to, because everybody came for the heavyweight fight.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone came for Black Panther versus Namor.
Oh, yeah.
They wind up crashing on a beach. And then...
Well, this is after she's, taking him away, and she told the AI that was flying the ship, get to the desert as fast as possible. So the AI kicks the ship into overdrive, but as weak as Namor is, still got his weapons, and he starts tearing the ship apart. And Shuri asks the AI, she goes, because she's basically just trying to gauge, all right, how much time do we have before we run into issues?
Right.
And the AI goes, she asks the AI, well, how much damage has he done to the ship? And the AI doesn't even pause. The AI just goes, catastrophic damage. Like we're done.
Yeah.
And that's when the ship crashes on the beach.
So they go there. There's a very big back and forth battle. Everybody is almost like mortally wounded.
Yeah.
At one stage too. But Shuri has enough strength that she winds up getting the, proverbial upper hand.
She got her second win.
She got the advantage, and she definitely took full opportunity with it. Because she can kill Namor at this point. Namor is this weekend. He's burnt.
Oh, yeah.
His whole entire back was burnt from the explosion of the ship.
Oh, yeah.
So now there's this moment where she can absolutely kill him and go right into what Killmonger said, but it's almost like M'Baku's words are haunting her now.
Well, and she also, the burning thing was brilliant too, because she had programmed the ship. What was it? She said Wakanda forever?
Yeah.
She programmed the ship that when she said Wakanda forever, the engines on the ship would kick in. So she like pulled herself off of being impaled.
Yeah, because she got impaled by the spear.
She got impaled by the spear, broke the spear in half, pulled herself off of it.
Badass scene.
So she goes running after him as fast as she can run, given she's mortally wounded. Leaps, lands in front of him, and he's basically ready to fight. And she just goes, Wakanda forever. The engines on the jet kick in. He's at like point blank range behind these things. Burns him to damn near crisp, and that's when she gets the upper hand.
Mm-hmm. And basically forces him to say, I quit.
Mm-hmm.
Or I yield, if you want to get technical.
Yeah.
But she winds up winning the battle between Wakanda and Talcon.
Because she makes the promise to him, yield, and we'll protect you from the surface world.
Yeah.
We'll go along with you.
Yeah, we'll make this happen. But we're going to do it on my terms, not yours.
Mm-hmm.
And Namor, he says yes. Like, he has to eat that humble pie, so to speak.
Yep.
So when this happens, they both wind up showing back up on the ship when you're about ready to see everybody is fighting each other, too. And you're seeing Wakanda is about ready to get overtaken again.
By what's left.
The Talcon army is ready to absolutely decimate them. And luckily, at the end of time here, you see finally that everybody makes a uneasy alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know it kind of
reluctant.
It's reluctant because I know people are saying, well, they're going to start working together. It's like, yeah, yes and no. Like, it's a weird thing, and politics make for interesting partnerships. I don't think they're going to look past what Namor did.
No, there's no way.
By any chance. So it's how this is all going to shape up in the future is really anybody's guess, but we do see that there isn't an easy alliance as of right now. Could this go off at any time? Absolutely. And will it probably? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. There's no question of that in my mind, but you do see that everybody goes back to Wakanda. Riri is going back home without the suit.
Yeah. That was one of the conditions. Hey, listen, you can work on whatever you want, just not this suit.
Right. But she does wind up taking the car back home.
Yes, she does.
Which, ironically...
because Shuri fixed it for her.
Yeah, Shuri fixed the car, and we find out that was her dad's. And it's very sentimental value. And it's a very cool scene that happened here as well, too. So, Riri is going back to MIT.
Yep.
Okoye is back now as the head of Dora Milaje, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And they wind up rescuing Everett Ross from the U.S. government.
Yeah, because he got arrested for treason.
Right. So, not exactly sure how this is all going to play out moving forward.
Hey, works for him.
Yeah, because you know what? That was where I was thinking Thunderbolts might come in.
Maybe.
That Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character says, no, you go get him back.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to kind of tease that route a little bit. Now, is it going to be full U.S. against Wakanda? No, but I'm interested to see how they play that out.
Something tells me Julia Louis-Dreyfus' character isn't going to be in the good graces of the U.S. government for long.
No, probably not, but...
She's only going to be the head of the CIA for a little bit longer.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that does. Like, I don't doubt her taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. at one point. Like, I know we haven't introduced Norman Osborn to do Dark Reign yet, but you could see possibly she slides in that role. Just saying it as right now. Meanwhile, you do see M'Baku has stepped up to take on the throne that he's going to be the head of Wakanda in the challenge sequence. And you do see that Namor is trying to explain to Namora why he did what he did.
Because in Namora's eyes, he's looking like a punk bitch.
Yeah. Which he goes, break it down like this.
No, what I did was deliberate.
Yeah. That our deal means I can go up there when I need to, when Wakanda can't fight. And we will be the saving grace that leads everybody.
Because inevitably the world is going to turn on her.
Yeah. So we just have to sit back and wait. And once we get our opportunity, we will take full advantage of it. And we will have an army behind us to take out everybody in the surface world.
Because he even brings up, like, hey, she's got nobody else right now. Well, there's no other connections. And in my head, I'm going, well, no, there's the other Avengers. And then I pause. I'm like, wait a minute. Her brother had those connections with the Avengers. She was there, but she's not exactly friendly with Thor or Scott Lang or any of the other ones.
Well, there's that, but there's also the point, too, to kind of bring it back full circle. The entire time that the other nations were going after the vibranium, Wakanda exiled itself from the United
They
Nations.
cut themselves off, yeah.
So they don't have any political allies in that aspect.
No, they done pissed everybody off.
Right. So Namor is playing this perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
He understood. Like, it took him a while to get it through his head. But yet again, this is what he does in the comics, folks. This is perfect Namor 101. He's a hothead jerk.
Yeah.
But once he realizes what it'll benefit him or Talokan, he usually goes on board with. So he basically says, this is what we're going to do. So I think, though, with Namor and especially with Atuma involved, I don't know how long that's going to last before an uprising there. Just knowing the character of Atuma, something will pop off sooner than later.
Probably.
But then we go to the bonus scene that I think I had everybody on the internet talking about this.
Oh, yeah.
So we do find out that Shuri goes to see Nakia in Haiti.
Because she got an open offer from Nakia. Hey, listen, when all this is done, if you want to get away from this and come live with me in Haiti, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, so she's doing the ceremony where they burn the robes.
Yep.
Obviously.
Because they wanted to do that earlier. Well, Queen Ramonda wanted Shuri to do that with her earlier in the movie, but Shuri just couldn't bring herself to do it.
Right, so now she's at a point where she can finally do it and give herself some closure to grieve. And while she's doing this, she finds out why Nakia has been gone from Wakanda since the snap.
Well, yeah, because she brought up, hey, listen, I realized he died, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. You know, he meant so much to me, and she's going on, and I'm sitting there watching this going, I wonder if they're about to set something up.
Yeah, and sure enough,
they
do, Pad.
Yeah.
Who do they introduce?
King T'Challa's son, Prince T'Challa.
Named Tuasen?
Mm-hmm.
And we find out that he has been raised away from Wakanda for the safety.
Yeah, and even the father agreed.
Yeah,
even King T'Challa agreed. Yeah, no, he needs to grow up away from all this.
Yes, because Tuasan in Wakanda language means T'Challa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the film ends.
Yeah.
So a lot to digest here. I think, like I said, if I have to give a grading system for this, I give it an 8.5.
Sure.
I think, though, there was a couple things I didn't like. And like I said, I thought they spent too much time in Talokan. But that's a personal thing.
Sure.
So like I say, I thought a lot of the camera sequences when they got to the big fight at the end jumped way too much.
That was one of my issues, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that took away a little bit too long.
The end fight was awesome, just way too many jump cuts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it made sense for the one sequence where it was like Shuri was fighting at the same time they're fighting the dude on the boat. You know, so it's kind of, and it was like the fight moves they were doing together were in sync with each other. They were doing the same moves. That made sense, but they were just bouncing back and forth way too much.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I thought some of the fights in that final sequence just moved too fast. It was like, it really didn't have that much of an impact. It was kind of like just kind of thrown in there just to have it thrown in. So I thought some of that stuff they could have cleaned up a little bit, but it's not enough to take away what I really thought of the movie. I thought the movie was really, really excellent. I thought they paid great respect to Chadwick Boseman and the character of T'Challa.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree.
I thought it was, I thought the cast and crew really stepped it up. I thought the new additions to the MCU family really made some noise, especially Namor, who I will admit, I wasn't sure how he was going to come across on screen because he's so tied into other elements of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic Four, Avengers, X-Men more recently than not, Defenders when we're talking the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Silver Surfer team. Not the more recent incarnations, but I'm just saying. He is a very vital member of the MCU. To see how he comes in, I thought Horta captured his essence. I thought they really nailed the writing of him. And I'm very excited to see where we go with him moving forward. It might be a Disney Plus show, to be honest with you. I don't know if they will go full movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see him going Disney Plus, which I think is smart because he's also a character much like in the vein of She-Hulk. Has not had a huge run in the comics, but is a very vital character.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a smaller Disney Plus show would work too. But I thought they really nailed this one. I thought for all the hype, it delivered on it. I don't think they had too many missteps that made me really take anything away from it. And I thought Angela Bassett's performance and Letitia Wright, too, I thought they did phenomenal in this. Final thoughts for you, Pat?
Fantastic movie, start to finish. Definitely one I got to watch when it gets added to Disney Plus in however many days it is. But no, this is the highest recommendation. This was one of the best movies I've seen of the year, and one of the best Marvel movies they've done in recent memory. Just everything about it, fantastic start to finish. Just like I said, a couple of issues with just the way the pacing of the final battle worked and the jump cuts. Other than that, the movie was fantastic. Can't recommend it enough.
Absolutely. So you definitely make sure you get to your local theaters, if possible, to go check out Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And then after you do, make sure to hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod, and give us your thoughts about the Black Panther sequel by Marvel Studios. We definitely want to have that conversation. So make sure to hit us up. Let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You ever wondered what comics Mark from Vale is into? What Zach from Left Behind's favorite MCU movies are? Well, Metalcore Nerds is the show for you. My name is Sean Mott, and here at Metalcore Nerds, we cover the latest things in pop culture, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, DC, AEW, and everything else in between. You can listen to the show every Monday on Adobe Howl at 7 p.m. Eastern, or find it anywhere you find podcasts after it debuts on the radio station.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we're almost at the end of the road, Pad. One more episode to go after this, and then maybe, just maybe, The Walking Dead will call it a wrap.
No, it won't, because they're spinoff shows.
They're spinoff shows, so I mean,
Fear the Walking Dead, the one in Paris with Daryl.
Yeah.
The one in New York with Negan and Maggie.
Rick and Michonne's movie.
Yeah. Well, movie, quote unquote, the TV special.
See, they should just rename it and just keep the show going. Like, at this stage, it's not going to end. AMC Network's long-standing adaptation of the Image comic from Robert Kirkman is almost at its quote unquote end.
Penultimate episode for the mainline show.
Yeah. So there's a lot to discuss. Obviously, they've taken their sweet time getting here.
Yeah.
It's the longest last season in recent memory. And
God, it's the longest final season I can think of. Although, I mean, to be fair, Smallville's Christ, even Smallville wasn't this long. Smallville did a couple seasons of like 22, 23 episodes. This one's 24.
Yeah, this is 24. And
which for these days is a lot.
Yeah, especially they've broken it off in parts too. Like, it wasn't continuous. Like, it was like, we did 8 episodes. Now we're coming back. We're going to do 8 more. And now we're going to come back and do final 8. So that being said, we are in for the long haul with this show. We are going to definitely be talking about the latest episode entitled, what, Pad? Family. So maybe Vin Diesel's in this. We don't know. But, well, we do know because we're going to talk about this.
If he was, I missed it.
Yeah, I know. Well, he might have been a zombie. That's how it said. We might have missed it.
I'd be down for a Dominic Toretto cameo.
I mean, we didn't see, the cargo driving through anything yet to see yet, but it's not to say it won't. But enough of us joking about it. We're going to definitely deep dive into the latest episode, the penultimate one for the Walking Dead Season 11 finale. So you know the deal by now. Spoiler-free time, and then after the countdown, it's fully deep dive. So, Pad, spoiler-free statement on family.
Thought the episode was all right. Definitely added some shock value to kind of bring you back in for the series finale. Although I will admit, it doesn't feel like we're necessarily heading into a series finale. And I realized, it's not really a series finale. They got the spinoff shows coming. For a lot of these characters, this is until otherwise, as of this recording, for a lot of these characters, this is going to be it. This is going to be the last time we'll see most of them on screen again. Mm-hmm. So you would figure they'd be setting up for some closure or a final shot of how things are going to go. But it feels like, we're just setting up for another season finale. We're going to come back in the fall. Or come back, in however long it would be at this stage. Because under normal circumstances, they'd have started a new season here. So it's interesting to see where this is going to go. And the episode was all right, but it just doesn't feel like the build for a series finale.
I agree. Like, there's one moment in this episode that stood out that I will definitely be talking about in spoilers. Pad knows exactly where I'm going to go with it.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought this kind of felt... I don't want to use the word lackluster.
It felt like a standard penultimate episode for a season.
Yeah.
Where like they're setting up for the big shocking value in the final episode, but they're coming back for more.
Yeah, like there wasn't any sense like this is the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that really took away. But it also ties into, and we've talked about this on the show in the past at many lengths, when they announced all those damn spinoffs,
right? They
really hurt the impact of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they had not said anything, and like next week is next week, and then they go, boom, sizzle trailer, all new spinoffs. That would have been perfect.
Well, and there were even a couple of moments in this episode that were it not for the fact that we already knew some of these characters were going to survive, would have been shocking, would have had me on the edge of my seat going, oh shit, oh shit, oh
Yeah.
shit. But all right, hey, we know they're going to survive.
Yeah, exactly. So you really took away from it. You really, it just, in my opinion, you dropped the ball here.
Mm-hmm.
Still, it's a watchable episode. There's nothing to take away from that. So I don't want that coming out like anything, not saying the best words about it. But I just felt like for being a season finale with the hype that you've had and you've been building, we needed more. We didn't get it here. But there's one foul mood or foul scene can get me out of my foul mood.
Mm-hmm.
And it needs to happen next week, and I will not accept it if it doesn't. So that being said, Pad, 3, 2, 1, talk to me.
Thought the episode was all right. Could have been better, could have been worse. It was middle of the road, I guess you could say. But like I said, it just doesn't feel like it's the end of the 11-year, more than 11 years at this point, show that like has been such a staple for so many folks and a staple of television. And it was a groundbreaking show, and I don't think that's a negative indictment on the writers and the directors per se. I'm not saying, hey, this is shit, this is awful. It's just like, I feel like you could have done better.
I swear to you, if Judith doesn't bite Daryl and turn him into a zombie next week, it's all a fail.
Well, we know he's not.
I'm still holding out hope.
It's a fool's hope because we know he's getting his own spin-off show, and there ain't much to a spin-off show of a guy walking around Paris as a zombie.
That would be amazing. What are you talking about? Him just all the dialogue is...
What are you smoking?
Just to get your reaction on that made it worthwhile. No, we opened up this episode, and it's more of everybody is now making their way to Pamela.
Mm-hmm.
All roads are pointing there. So you're seeing the different factions of the splintered group of survivors now starting to get together, going on the train, with the last stop being Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
Albeit, though, there was a cool scene where a zombie was on the tracks and got splattered.
Mm-hmm. That saw that coming. As soon as they showed that one of the walkers was on the train tracks, I'm like, oh, this is going to be nasty. And it was.
Yeah, so you're seeing just various members of the group on there kind of having their last moments. And also, they open up the show, too, with more of the Judith narration, which, like, I don't know. I know they're trying to really capture the nostalgia factor, but it's not working.
Right.
It's kind of like everybody's taking their weapons out of a war chest. And I was like, well,
yeah.
I mean, like, am I supposed to get excited about this? Like,
yeah.
It's not really connecting.
Yeah.
So we're now seeing that they're on their way, and everybody's, I guess the temp in the room is supposed to be like, we're supposed to be expecting the tension at an all-time high, and I didn't feel that. I felt like, well, this is a normal just ride through. Mm-hmm. The only thing that stood out for obvious reasons was you had Tyler, who had been helping the survivors after he defected from the Commonwealth, kind of have his last penance and try apologizing for what he's done.
Right.
That now he's on there. And of course, the group is like, oh, we're so glad you joined us and you're here with us. And it's like, oh, you're getting killed. Mm-hmm. Like, this just telegraphed itself so much. And then we find out, obviously, later, well, something happens, and does he make it out of it? We don't know. But also at this point, you are kind of seeing the Uneasy Alliance get more easy.
Yeah. With
Negan and Ezekiel. So, I mean, they're kind of trying to set up that final moment, the final goodbyes. But I don't know. Like, it just kind of felt to me, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, it was just like we're going through motions.
Yeah, no, that's kind of how it felt. Like, hey, we realize there's going to be some, like I said, there's going to be some characters who aren't back after next week that, like, we just got to wrap their stories up.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those situations where they're trying to really tie in everybody as much as they can, but is it really working? I don't know. For me, it just kind of didn't do too much. The only thing that
I understood what they were trying to do, but for me, like, the connection just didn't get there.
Yeah, like, I think that's one problem, too, is a lot of those characters they're given the final moments of screen time to, with the exception of Ezekiel and Negan.
Right.
Like, where have you been for a couple episodes? Like, I'm tuned out.
Yeah.
Don't matter to me. But you do see, though, that Mercer, who has helped Eugene escape, is now getting questioned by Pamela and is trying to cover his tracks as best he can. But it's not really happened too much. Princess is trying to make contact with him, but it's not. Yeah, like I say, they're trying to come up with this big plan that we can lead. And this killed me, too.
Yeah.
quote unquote, we're going to find a legal way to remove Pamela from office.
Fuck that. Just kill her.
Do you people not realize you're in the Walking Dead universe? Like, it's really like, where are you going to take her to court?
Law is a figment of your own imagination.
Like, you ain't calling Saul Goodman to get on there and testify. Like,
Yo, that'd be a hell of a crossover.
that'd be amazing.
Oh my God.
But when they're saying they're like, we're going to legally do this, I'm like, wait, we're like, granted, I know that I have been tuned out a little bit this season, but where are you guys? Do we have a legal system? We're going to maintain this? Like, stop.
Yeah.
You're in the freaking Walking Dead. There's only one way this answers.
I mean, spoiler alert, if you've seen the finale of Better Call Saul, he would be out by this point.
Yeah, so, you imagine he's walking around zombie Saul? Give it to me. So, while this is going on, Pamela catches wind. And now she's been off her, hinges there, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Since her son got killed off, the tape exposed of the political intrigue that she was trying to expand the Commonwealth behind everybody's back and do it one nation under Pamela. So now she's trying to take out anybody involved, and once she finds out Mercer was involved with Eugene's escape, he's now sentenced for treason.
Yeah.
So she now is like assembling whatever forces she has left to go kill the group because she knows they're on the way. While this is going on, Tyler, who was helping everybody out before, he gets killed.
Yeah. That's what you get for being nice.
We all knew. So,
or we barely knew.
Well, we barely knew, but that's what I say. Like, a lot of the people they were killing off aren't major characters. Like, you're supposed to have these amazing sentimental moments, and it's like, I don't even care. Like, he's in there. He finally got.
He's been here for a cup of tea.
Yeah, because at this point too, you're seeing that Daryl and Carol and everybody has now made their way into the building, trying to get Pamela. It's not working so well.
Yeah.
And then you see, though, the only move that really got my attention.
Yep.
Judith shoves Maggie out of the way in the line of fire and gets shot.
Yep.
Which I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. They're actually taking a risk.
They're taking a risk. Holy shit. This hasn't happened in quite some time.
Fucking pinch me.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, now you have my attention because now we did something completely crazy. Daryl loses his mind. Now, granted, he returned to Daryl Wick mode.
Well, because earlier in the episode, he did promise that he'd always be there for Judith and he'd protect her.
Yeah, which, telegraphs yet again.
Something's going to happen.
Yeah. Now, granted, I didn't think they were going to do it, but I was like,
no.
Okay, here we go. And so, sure enough, he's trying to get Judith to the hospital there.
The clinic, yeah.
Yeah, which I'm like, okay, just go along with it. Allegedly there's doctors there that can help her out at this point. I don't know. Commonwealth is a weird place. It's not Tahiti, but they think it's magical. And while this is going on still, there's a shootout going on in this courthouse between Pamela's army and Pamela, which to her credit, I will say this, grabs a machine gun and starts firing off herself.
Well, yeah, because she's the one who shot Judith.
Yeah, which it took me a minute to remember that because it was just like, I'm thinking, where was she during all this? And no, she grabs the gun. So Layla Robbins gets her hands dirty with this. She's the one who shoots Judith.
Yep.
And obviously everybody is now looking for blood with her.
Well, they're freaking out, and she runs away screaming, "You did this! You're responsible for this!"
Yeah, like a truly insane person. So it works. I love the scene.
Yeah.
So while this is going on, you're seeing the one group of survivors, which is Daryl and Carol and Maggie and Negan and Ezekiel all together. And you see Ezekiel buys them some time by throwing the fire extinguisher in the air, and Daryl, the marksman that he is, hits it in midair to create a smoke screen to get out.
Yep.
All the while, you're seeing this monster herd come towards Alexandria.
Yep.
Or the Commonwealth.
Commonwealth, yeah.
And in this herd, too, we have to kind of talk about a little bit, too. Because there was a scene that happened that I kind of went, here we go again.
Yeah.
We do know that the Aaron-led coalition of Jerry and Lydia and someone else.
There was at least two others.
It was Luke and Jules.
Yep.
Sorry, it took me. Like, when we don't see these characters every week, they're so big of a cast, it throws me off for a loop. Like, they're all, quote-unquote, dressed up as zombies so they can walk in.
Well, except for Aaron, who's walking with his head exposed.
Yeah, can we talk about that for a minute?
Like, everybody else in the group is sitting there, like, covered in some sort of blood and guts or covering their face so, like, they can't be seen. Nah, Aaron's just walking around out there. Now, admittedly, his skin did look a little pale, did look a little off color. But, like, there's no guts. Like, if you think back to Rick and Glenn in the first season, like, what they look like walking through Atlanta to escape them, nothing like that. His head's exposed. It's bright as day outside. So it's like, really? They can't see this guy?
Yeah, that's the whole point. It was like, what are we doing here? You've been here before. You know better. But no, I'm just going to walk around like nothing's happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and hopefully nobody recognizes me, even though I was a high member of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Like, you'd figure somebody would recognize who you are? No. No, we're just going to call that what, Pad? Reasons. So they wind up going with this herd until he does get picked off. And they wind up trying to make a duck into a trailer of some sort. And then Lydia is trying to rescue her boyfriend. And I apologize, he escapes me. But meanwhile, while she does this, she exposes her entire forearm.
Mm-hmm.
You do this in front of an entire zombie army. What do you think is going to happen?
Nothing good.
No, one of them sees this and goes for a bite.
Nom, nom, nom.
Yep. And takes a huge chunk out of her forearm.
Yeah.
So she winds up losing the boyfriend. He'll be maybe dead, maybe not. We don't know.
Maybe.
So now she's on the trailer, and they have to conveniently do an amputation, Walking Dead style, which is, here, bite down on this so you don't scream.
Bite on this leather strap, yeah.
Yep, I'm going to get the machete out and cut your arm off. It's cool. Don't worry. Hey, I got one too. So it's almost like Aaron's like, yeah, it's nothing. You get used to it after a while. Like, look at this cool mace I have on my arm. But hey, you can have one too. So they wind up cutting her arm off, saving her for now, ...
We'll see.
And then you see that they're now finally finding a way to sneak to the Commonwealth as well. So, like, everybody is now back at the Commonwealth.
I'll say all roads point to the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so now we're going to have the final thing go down where you're seeing Pamela is trying to direct traffic. Meanwhile, the walkers are now become smart.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to talk about this a little bit?
So, as the herd shows up, they start, the soldiers that are on guard out on the perimeter of the Commonwealth, on the walls and the turrets and the towers and what have you. They're like, hey, we got an issue coming. There's issues here. And then they just start fucking climbing the walls.
Yeah.
Like, for the first time, and I'd have to look up how many episodes there have been. I believe if this thing on the Wikipedia,
176.
Yes, after 176 episodes, they're doing more than just sauntering along at a leisurely pace, and they're climbing the wall. Now, of course, we saw this last week when the one fell over, picked up the knife. Mind you, they didn't follow up on that.
We still have no payoff yet.
We got no payoff for that. We figured at some point watching that somebody's going to get the fucking shank, but we got no payoff for that. But no, the friggin' walker just starts climbing the scaffolding, and all of a sudden they're overrun.
Yeah.
Which I said to you while we were watching the episode, I wouldn't mind that if this wasn't the second to last episode.
Exactly.
If this was like season 5 or 6, like, okay, that makes sense. Like, adapting, changing, I'm all for this. Add a little bit of flavor to it. I like flavor. But no, this is the second to last episode, and now we're just adding this.
Exactly. You're expecting me to buy this after all this time. You're forcing this in there. Like, I'm sorry. There's no reason it should be forced. You should have done this 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
Teased it. Like, do it in an off panel or like an off moment that nobody pays attention to. Then come back to it a couple episodes later. Then build up to it. There's no purpose in doing this now, so why are we wasting our time? Because now you're expecting me after 170 some odd episodes to go, oh, wow, they can actually climb. They're coherent.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, like, I'm not buying this. And let alone that one still has a knife. Like, we haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So unless that zombie stabs somebody next week, it's all for nothing. I'm sorry, don't try saying, oh, well, it's just to show that they're symbiote. Almost. Sorry, no, I'm sorry. Like, I can't buy that argument.
No.
If you could try explaining that to me, I'm all ears. Like, I'll listen to you. But I've had a couple of people try saying, well, it's to explain that. I'm like, well, there's better ways to do it. Like, why would they specifically pick up a knife if they're not going to use it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, they're all hungry looking for flesh to eat. I mean, that's what zombies do. So, like, why? Like, what's he going to do? Keep it in his back pocket? Sorry. Yeah, like I say, it loses its luster here. So, meanwhile, you have Pamela trying to fend off the attack, even though she is completely overwhelmed and having another breakdown, which is all basically saying, well, my plan of bringing the zombie herd here, well, it went over my head, so we're all going to die. Except me, because I'm going to have everybody stand by my building and shoot and keep me safe. Like, how do you feel that went over, Pad?
That was typical for someone in power in these movies and TV shows is, hey, fuck the rest of you, protect me.
Yeah.
Which, if you've seen how those situations go in other shows and movies, you know how it's going to go for her.
Yeah. So meanwhile, The only other thing going on here is the zombie herd is now running in through the streets of the Commonwealth. Daryl is running with Judith, who's been shot and unconscious for I don't know how long at this point, trying to find the clinic, even though he's ducking down a back alley. And that's how this episode ends, where you have everybody else holding it, buying him time. So this has to end one or two ways. Judith has to bite Daryl, or
not going to happen.
Judith has to bite Carol next week.
And
And then Daryl's forced with the ultimate decision of saving or killing Carol, and then he flies to Europe away to deal with that.
Also, Carol could happen. Daryl, we know, is not.
No, I know, but I'd just like to see the internet lose its mind for a bit. I mean, I don't know. What's your take on this episode? Final thoughts on this?
The episode was all right. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I didn't regret watching it and didn't go, oh, that was an hour plus of my life lost. It could have been better, though. And just these whole final few episodes were being, oh, this is the end of an era. It doesn't feel like it. And again, that might be partially because we know there's more coming. But for being the end of a show that has run for 11 seasons in the better part of like 12 years at this point, this feels like this should be a monumental event. That this is something that like everybody from whatever season you watch Walking Dead or however long you watch should be talking about, like, hey, this show's actually ending, and it's kind of just like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I agree. Like this, I hate saying it was lackluster. I mean, the shock value they were trying to go with, only one thing worked, and that was Judith getting shot. Didn't expect that. But everything else, okay, Lydia getting her arm bit off, and now she's going to be...
Sure.
Like, I'm sorry, like, at this stage, it's like... We're not going to see that much of a struggle of how she goes to accommodate now with only one arm surviving in the zombie apocalypse, because guess what? There's one episode left.
Mm-hmm.
Unless she's going on one of the spin-offs. We don't know. So, like, that was pointless. The whole thing about making a big fuss over Tyler, like, I'm sorry, he's disposable.
Right.
There's, like, the minute he got that final forgiveness, like, yep, you're getting killed.
Right.
And then whatever happened to Lydia's boyfriend and the music teacher there, and, like I say...
He got pulled away. He's dead.
Yeah, you got to figure they're dead. It's just, this is how it goes down. But I thought where it just really hit its moments was like, okay, you did something shocking with Judith. That's what stands out for this. And it makes sense for the Walking Dead universe. Now, how it plays out for next week, we better have a big payout. But being the last episode, it's not going in there with like, just the temperature is now to a boiling point.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's simmering, but it's not boiling. So I don't know necessarily what we're going to expect next week.
Yeah, I do know because I looked on the TV guide. The episode is an hour and a half.
Well, as it should be.
Yeah.
Which is good because
it's also written by Angela Kang and then directed by Greg Nicotero. So it should be good.
Heavy hitters are coming out for this one. And like I say, they need to tie this up. We better have some big deaths.
Yeah.
We better have something that brings it back to why we fell in love with the show.
Well, they are promising shock value, so we'll see.
Yeah, but I want like real shock. Like, I don't want, like, Lydia's arm getting bit.
Right.
Sorry, she hasn't been on TV that much, since the Alpha storyline. Like, it's here and there, but I'm not invested. I could care less about anybody at the Commonwealth. Hell, like, half the people that are part of that group, I have to sit there and go back and figure out who they are. Like, that's a bad sign. But we also have talked about this in the past. This cast is overcrowded.
Oh, entirely so.
Yeah, like, it never recovered from the Negan War. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And usually in years past with Walking Dead, you add a character. Well, that means you're going to lose a character.
Right. They had a good balance for one point. But then when you try going over the top with this, it doesn't work. And I'm sorry. I think this is something that takes away from this kind of ensemble cast. That people are getting lost in the shuffle. So when they're killed off or something dramatic happens, I don't care. Like, because I'm not invested with them.
Right.
If I'm invested to a character like a Carol or a Daryl or a Judith,
sure,
then I'm here. I'm like, okay, like you have my attention. But I'm sorry, Tyler? Who?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, like the fact that he got that much screen time and then you see him get a bullet put in his head, it was like...
Well, and Chris, there was even the one point where Judith was talking to RJ. You and I forgot whose kid RJ was.
Yeah.
I had to look up whose kid RJ was because he's not from the comics. I don't remember who he is.
Yeah, like I said, there were so many people that have been just lost in the shuffle on the show that it's like, okay, next week, I only expect a handful to survive, if even. Yeah. If we have everybody walking out and we're going to establish a new Alexandria, I'm gonna probably lose my mind on next week's show. I will be ripping this to shreds like nobody's business. In the meantime, though, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about the misleading title of Family? Because I didn't see Vin Diesel or Dominic Toretto anywhere in there. And what's your thoughts going into the final episode, ... of The Walking Dead? Are you excited? Are you not? Hour and a half. Pat and I will be definitely talking about that on next week's episode. But until then, let us know what you think. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sideroom Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and I'm actually going to kick things off here.
Okay.
So, since last episode, we have some news that definitely caught my attention. I'm super excited about this.
Okay.
It has been announced via our good friends over at Comixology that Scott Snyder has a new series coming out called By a Thread. Mm-hmm. And this will be actually co-written by his son, Jack.
Oh.
So this will be Jack's writing debut.
Nice.
The series I'm reading directly from the Comixology press release will be drawn by artist Valeria Fokova, who we know from Beatrix Rose Vigilante, and colored by Whitney Koger. So definitely want to check this one out when it comes out. By a Thread is a post-apocalyptic adventure about kids surviving in a future after a mysterious and deadly infection spreads across the earth, making the ground we tread on untouchable. So exciting stuff. Like I said, that was from the press release from Comixology. Pat, I will show you the promo art.
Ooh, that looks very nice.
Yeah, so this definitely looks very, very cool. So
Interesting.
we will definitely be talking about that. Hopefully we can get Scott and Jack on the show to talk about this. So
Yeah, I'll say writing comics is very much a multi-partner dance. You know, it takes more than one to tango, you know, in the case of writing a comic. But in terms of having a dance partner for your first comic, hell of a dance partner in Scott Snyder.
Yeah, so definitely super excited about that. So make sure you have to keep eye out for it. Don't have a release date just yet. I know that they were over at the Thought Bubble over in the UK this week.
Saw
so
him posting about that.
yeah, so I'm not exactly sure what was going on there, but obviously news has been trickling out about that. So you definitely want to make sure you're keeping an eye out for it. And we scream about the Comixology Originals line on here all the time because it's that damn good. And this is going to be another great addition to that line. I'm super excited to go check this out when it comes out. Speaking of Comixology, got a couple books I definitely are going to be talking about on Parlay Points this week. And obviously, due to the kind of shifting of the recording schedule, can't go into a deep dive into them just yet. But a couple to keep an eye out for. We mentioned Beatrix Rose Vigilante #5. That's coming out with Valeria Fokova doing the artwork. Stephanie Phillips is doing the writing. You know I'm a huge fan of her. Grimm is coming back soon on Boom Comics or Boom Studios, so definitely super excited about that. But this closes out the story of Mark Dawson's espionage, wildly popular character, and Beatrix has got a lot going on with this, so you definitely want to see the conclusion of this story. I think it's a great book you're definitely going to need to check out. Also, Census #3 by Mark Bernardin, Adam Freeman, and Sebastian Perez. Listen, this book has been nothing short of quirky, funny, and imaginative, and definitely you want to check out issue 3 when it drops. I will definitely co-sign on that. And then over at Boom Studios, one of my favorite comic line or series out, new issues coming out, and that is Something is Killing the Children #26. Can't go into spoilers about any of these because the embargo is up, but you definitely want to make sure you're following Parlay Points this week at odphpodcast.com, and I can definitely deep dive into it when we get there for it. And like I always say, support your favorite comic shops wherever you're at in the world, because you definitely want to support the medium because they're doing some great work, and especially Comixology. I know it's a digital store, but listen, they do some fantastic stuff over there, so you definitely want to make sure you go check it out. Pad?
Got a couple things to talk about. The first of which is a moment Pokemon fans have been waiting 25 years to happen.
Wow.
You got the latest batch of episodes dropped for the Pokemon series that's ongoing, but finally, much like the original series intro said, Ash wanted to be the best, like no one ever was. And he finally did it. Ash is finally the Pokemon world champion. He's the greatest Pokemon trainer in all of the lands. Gotta admit, I checked out the episode. As someone who grew up on Pokemon, I was right in that target age range when the games came out, the card games came out. I remember being in school and playing the card game, trading cards, and teachers turned around one day and said, hey, can't bring the cards around anymore. Can't bring the Game Boy in anymore to play the game. So I fell off of it just because it grew out of it. But, I heard this. I was like, all right, I need to check this because I was there for some of the journeys and some of the moments, him finishing in like the top 16 in his first tournament, and then kind of finally struggling. So to finally see this, gotta admit, it was cool to see. It was nice after all these years, finally see him back on top. Awesome to see. If you want to check out the series, it's currently ongoing over at Netflix.
Surreal, man.
Oh, it is.
After all this time?
All this time.
I'm definitely not as big into it as you are.
Sure.
I'm very,
sure.
dip my pinky toe into that water,
Sure.
so to speak.
Sure.
But he finally got there?
Finally got there. It was awesome to see. And there's an awesome moment in the episode I don't want to spoil, but if you're a long-time fan of the show, it's going to pull at your heartstrings a little bit.
Okay.
Switching over to some news that was announced just today, you got the categories and nominations for the upcoming Game Awards. I'm not going to go through all of them because there's a lot of categories, but these are some of the ones I wanted to highlight and mention. For most anticipated game, now this is a game that had not come out yet, but they feel these are the 5 most anticipated games of the year, and fans can vote at thegameawards.com for these categories and all the other ones. So for most anticipated game, you have Final Fantasy 16 from Square Enix, Hogwarts Legacy from Avalanche Software and WB Games, Resident Evil 4 from Capcom, Starfield from Bethesda Game Studios and Bethesda, and then The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom from Nintendo. This is the sequel to, the Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
So you got that going. For Best Mobile Game, Apex Legends Mobile from Lightspeed and Quantum /Respawn/EA. Diablo Immortal, got a feeling that one won't win. For reasons. Genshin Impact from Hoyoverse, Tower of Fantasy from Hoda Studio, Perfect World and Level Infinite, and Marvel Snap.
Ooh.
The game that just came out like a couple of weeks ago.
That's taking everybody over, man. I know so many people playing that right now. I'm scared to upload it because with my schedule, I'm never going to get off it.
Sure. I've tried it. Not necessarily my cup of tea, but hey, if it's your cup of tea, more power to you.
Sure, absolutely.
Best Adaptation. Now, this is a video game property that was turned into a movie or a show. You've got Arcane League of Legends from the folks over at Riot Games and Netflix.
Heard really good things about that.
Cyberpunk Edge Runners from Studio Trigger, CD Projekt Red, and Netflix. The Cuphead Show from Studio MDHR, King Features Syndicate, and Netflix. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 from Sega Sammy Group and Paramount Pictures. And Uncharted from PlayStation Productions and Sony Pictures. As much those are all great shows and great movies. Much as I love the Uncharted movie, it's a little underrated in my opinion. It's probably going to be Arcane.
It probably will, but everybody I've talked to about Arcane just raves about it. Even the novice people that don't really know too much about it that I've talked with are like, this is incredible. And even, like I said, the diehard fans of that franchise, dude, they talk about that.
Oh, yeah. And then lastly, and certainly not leastly, you have the Game of the Year awards. In this category, you have A Plague Tale Requiem from Asobo Studios and Focus Entertainment, Elden Ring from Software and Bandai Namco, God of War Ragnarok from Sony Santa Monica, Horizon Forbidden West from Guerrilla Games, Stray from Blue 12 Studio, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Couple of things. Honestly, it's probably going to be, as much as I love Horizon Forbidden West, and I have not played God of War Ragnarok yet, it's probably going to be Elden Ring, just because the impact that game had. You got to remember, too, this is a fan vote.
Yeah.
This isn't, journalists behind the scenes. This is fan vote. It's probably going to be Elden Ring just because that game was everywhere for when it came out and just the impact it had. But shout out to Stray. That's the little indie game that is contending with AAA titles. It's the one about you play the cat and you're playing a cat through it. You're going through adventures and all this stuff. Started as a post on Reddit for somebody, hey, look at the game I'm making. Now up for Game of the Year category on the Game Awards. Yeah. Shout out to those folks. That's incredible just to see them up with AAA Sony and Xenoblade and with Nintendo and Bandai Namco.
It's huge.
It's insane. It's a credit to you. So if you want to go and vote on all these categories and more, you want to go to thegameawards.com. The event takes place December 8th from the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles. It will be streaming online in YouTube, Twitch, all these other places. So definitely want to give that a check out and vote for your favorite categories. Because like I said, those are only the 4 I wanted to highlight. There's a ton more to vote for.
I was going to say, maybe we'll get some pad picks before
Sure,
then.
sure.
Maybe we'll go through the lineage, put it on his Twitter.
Can do that. And then lastly, and certainly not leastly, we have to talk about the unfortunate passing of the great actor that was Kevin Conroy. The news came down on Friday that he had passed away at the age of 66. And of course, he is best known for voicing the character of Batman Bruce Wayne for 30 plus years in multiple generations. This one hurt and this one hit heavy. You know, for me, you know, no disrespect to anyone who's voiced the character, anyone else who's voiced the character or who has played the character. He was my Batman.
Yeah.
You know, I was too young, you know, for when the movies had come out, you know, because I was born after the movies had come out, you know, so I was born after Batman 1 and then, you know, Batman Returns, you know, I was right around that time when, Batman Forever came out, but I was too young for it, you know, so the first exposure I got to Batman was the Batman the Animated Series. It was the Kevin Conroy portrayal, you know, and my mom took me to see Batman Mask of the Phantasm in theaters because I was so into the character. And, you know, there's a photo in my parents' photo album at home of my grandmother took me someplace. I don't even remember where, but she got me a gift and she got me the Batmobile toy. You know, this huge thing which you could drive it around, you know, with your hand because, hey, back then we didn't have remote controls for everything. You know, you could drive it around and it even had these little spike things you could extend from the wheels. They're like, oh, hey, you're going to slice this person's tire. There's a photo of me in the backseat of my grandmother's car asleep holding this thing.
Oh,
that I loved it that much. My mother had a little book, and I'm sure a lot of you had these too, but my mother had this little book of like, you'd put my school photo in it and like, oh, here's my age and here's my teacher and here's my favorite subject and here's what I like to eat. But at the bottom of it, it would say what I want to be when I grow up. And there was a solid 3-4 years I put Batman because of this show, you know? So,
yeah.
And in all honesty, I wouldn't have gotten into half of the comic stuff I would have without the show, because watching this show led me to discover the Adam West series. Just because I was already watching the show, I remember watching Guts on Nickelodeon on a Saturday. Guts got finished, so I was flipping channels looking for something to find. And I stumbled across a re-airing on TV Land, and I'm like, oh, hey, it's Batman. But I'm like, oh, this could be cool. And I remember being really confused because in the animated series he's got the grapple gun and he's swinging around through the air, and in the Adam West series he's walking up the side of a building. Yeah. And I remember looking at my dad, going, Dad, why is he walking up the side of a building when he's got a grapple gun? And Dad gave me some answer for whatever. But that then led me to Super Friends, because they started re-airing Super Friends on Cartoon Network, you know, and so I was like, hey, there's Batman, you know, and it just led one thing to another. So to Kevin Conroy, you know, I say thank you. You will be very much missed. And honestly, the character won't be the same without you, just because, no disrespect to, you know, to the Christian Bale or Ben Affleck or Pattinson, you know, or Val Kilmer, or you know, even George Clooney, you know, as much shit as he gets, or any of the other actors who have voiced him over the years. Just nobody to me holds a candle to Kevin Conroy, and I thank you for everything.
Yeah. No, this definitely hurt. I grew up on Batman the Animated Series, and I've always stated on this show that I've never been a huge Batman fan, and that show made me a Batman fan. I know that I always read the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo run with Kevin Conroy's voice.
Oh, I do too.
As the voice.
Anything that's not already voiced, I'm hearing Kevin Conroy's voice.
Yeah, because you have to think about this too. He doesn't get enough credit for being Batman because everybody expects the live action from the movie.
Sure.
But for what he did, he was Batman.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't say otherwise. Like sure, he wasn't in a movie per se, but you think about what he made on the small screen.
Oh, yeah.
In a show that, listen, if it wasn't for Batman the Animated Series, I mean, how many other shows would be blowing up right now?
Not many.
Like, let's like seriously talk about this. How groundbreaking his work was, that being at that time, voice acting wasn't like the big thing it is now.
No.
But how he made that into taking over a role that had been acted live action for years.
Oh, yeah.
And he has carved in his own side of the Mount Rushmore of Batman with just that work alone, let alone till he goes into the video games and the the other anime projects,
movies and the shows. Yeah,
yeah, like just to see the work that he's done, is just a credit to just how amazing he was.
Yeah,
and like I say, this one, I know we were talking with a lot of our content creating friends on Friday, and it's just like when news hit, it was like,
I was legitimately holding back tears.
Yeah.
And sobbing for most of Friday.
Yeah.
And I got home, and I'd already been kind of thinking about rewatching the animated series because it's been a while. It's been a couple of years since I watched it, but this pushed me over the edge to watch. So I started watching it on HBO Max. And then my girlfriend came over, and she had heard and saw, and, she was kind of comforting me. And I just started bawling. Like, not even ashamed to admit it. I just started full-fledged bawling into her lap just because he meant that much to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, too. And especially, like, we know when we've gone to New York Comic-Con.
Yeah.
And just how much he was just...
Oh, my God, the line. Because he'd do autographs and for hours. And just you'd always walk by there just to see who was there. Just because you'd see the folks...
Oh, sure, yeah.
You'd see the folks announce for photos, but it'd always be kind of interesting to see who was there for photos. And he always had a long line.
Yeah,
always.
And he always took the time to really make everybody feel important down there too.
Yeah,
like that was the thing. Like we've known people that gone up and got stuff signed from him, and he has just always made it such a memorable experience. Like I always regret I didn't go see.
Same.
Like I say, it was always like something I meant to do and just never did. And
yeah,
it's just
I never had anything for him to just because I've never owned. I've only had the toys, and the toys are long since gone. I donated them away years ago because I'm like, oh, I don't need these anymore. I've wanted I wanted the Blu-ray collection of the animated series for so long. But then they came out on HBO Max, so that kind of put that on the back burner. I've wanted the Blu-ray collection of Mask of the Phantasm when that came out, but then again, it came out on HBO Max, so that kind of put that on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
But I always wanted his, but I never had anything autographed by him, and it's tragic irony. I got my birthday was last week. I got a $25 gift card to Barnes and Noble for my birthday. And I went to Barnes and Noble on Saturday to try and find something. And for all the years, I never had anything to sign by him. I was perusing the graphic novel section just because there's a lot of graphic novels, especially some of the seminal stories I don't have. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking, and of course, he had just died, so I'm looking through the Batman stuff. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of in a Batman mood. And what did I find? Volume 2 or Season 2 of the continuation of Batman, the animated series, which I had not even seen. I own, basically all of Season 1, Volume 1 on Comixology. But I had not seen a collection of that in trade paperback. But the day after he died, I finally saw Season 2, Volume 2, the continuation of the animated series. Yeah. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely hits just the impact he did and just, how many fans he's connected with. And, just the legacy he's left behind.
It's a long shadow.
Yeah, like, he will always be remembered. And just do yourself a favor if you, for whatever reason, haven't checked out his stuff that he's done, the animated series. It's
all on HBO Max.
Yeah, do yourself a favor and go do that. In fact, I'll even say go check out Mask of Phantasm.
Mask of the Phantasm is a good one. If you don't have HBO Max for whatever reason and you want to get in and you haven't seen any of his portrayals, look up the scene from Justice League Unlimited. I forget the episode name, but just go to YouTube and type Batman Sits with Ace.
Yeah.
From Justice League Unlimited, and prepare to have your heartstrings ripped out.
Yeah.
Because that is the best scene Kevin Conroy did as Batman, bar none.
Yeah. Definitely hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. Let us know what your favorite Kevin Conroy episode was of the animated series. I was like talking about that. I know we've had so many conversations with fellow fans this weekend, and definitely want to keep that through. And like on behalf of everybody here, our deepest condolences go out to Kevin Conroy's family, friends, and fans all over the world. Like, he will be always remembered, and his legacy will live on forever.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll just keep it very short and sweet. For anything and everything that is the ODPH, you can find it at odphpodcast.com. For the one only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. See you next time.